John Talley here with Partzilla.com. Today we're going to be taking a look at the braking system on our Polaris Sportsman 850. Specifically, what's going on is I've ridden this machine and you go to hit the brakes and it's making this god-awful grinding noise. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at both the front and the rear. For this particular machine, it actually uses the same brake pads for the front and rear system. So there's only one part number you need to keep up with. All right, so give me a couple of minutes. I'm going to go ahead and lift it up in the air, pull that front right tire, and start pulling it apart and see how it looks. So let's get started. All right, what we want to do is get this thing cleaned off the best we can, get most of the dirt out from around that boot. Also inspect the boot while you're doing it, make sure it doesn't have any rips in it. Next, I want to go ahead and compress the piston back inside the caliper. I usually pick that point right there and just start prying on it. Once it opens up just a tick, then you can get your screwdriver in between the pad and the outside of the caliper itself. And we just want to compress the piston all the way in there. That way we'll have enough room to get the new pads back in there. Because these are, once you'll see in a minute, are completely worn out. I mean, to the point of being a little absurd. It was metal on metal. All right, before you take off these two 15mm bolts at the top and the bottom of the caliper bracket, there's a 5mm Allen at the top. Let me go ahead and back it off. And what that's going to allow is that pin to get pushed all the way through, or not all the way through, but further back. That way you can get the actual brake pads out. Now we can remove those two 15mm bolts. Alright, now push these all the way back. Now we can lift off that end, swing it around. Oh, look at that. That is just absolutely terrible. No pad material left whatsoever. And that inner one, it was actually about a third of the way of cutting through the back plate of the brake pad itself. Alright, with the pads out of the way, we want to go ahead and pull the backing plate. What we want to do to make this thing operate smoothly is clean this off, a little bit of brake cleaner, and then we want to put some grease back on these two pins. Also want to inspect these two boots, make sure there's no tears, and if they are torn, you need to go ahead and replace them. Alright, we've got the grease on there, everything's cleaned up fairly well. I may have to compress that piston in a little bit further, but we'll see. I don't give you a whole lot of room, but it will go in there. Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to compress that piston in a little bit more. So what I'm going to do is just temporarily mount it back to the hub, get our screwdriver back in there, and compress that piston further in so we can get that other brake pad on. There we go. That should have bottomed it out now. Sometimes you got to back up to go forwards. Alright, now there should be enough distance to get those around the brake disc itself. Not by much. Alright, there she goes. Go ahead and get our 15mm back in on the top and the bottom. Don't forget this little 5mm Allen plug up at the top of that upper pin. And that pretty much does it. The only thing we need to do is, just give it a couple of pumps to make sure, it re-engages the pads onto the rotor. Basically, the other side is a mirror image of this right here, so it's exactly the same procedure. And we're about to go back and do the rear brake pads. I mean, the purpose of this video was to show you just how to do the brake pads, but honestly, this front brake disc is beyond use. I mean, its wear limit should be right at 4.24 millimeters in thickness, and it's well under 4 millimeters. So this thing is not really usable. I will come back in a different video and show you how to replace this, but for right now I'm just going to leave it in place. Go ahead and put this back together and move to the back and show you how to do the rear brake pads on it. Alright guys, I've got a setup so we can do the rear brakes on this particular unit. It's kind of an odd setup in my opinion. It actually only has one brake caliper and set of pads, and it's over on the right side. Other side, nothing over there. So all your braking action is handled by this side, then transmitted to the other side through the rear differential. I wasn't in on that design. It wasn't my idea, but that's the way Polaris does it. Alright, as far as replacing the pads, it's almost exactly the same procedure as we did on the front, but I'll go ahead and walk you through it. Go ahead and collapse the piston into the caliper. Tell you what, these calipers are not in the best shape. I'm fairly certain we'll end up rebuilding them in another video. And while we're talking about other videos, as I mentioned on the front, this rear disc is not in very good shape either. But like I said, that is for another time. All we're going to do today is just replace the pads. Alright, with that compressed in, go ahead and take off that little cap that they have. Once again, it's a 5 millimeter. Alright, from there, let's get her cleaned up just a little bit. We'll do this a little bit more once we get it all the way off. Same setup as on the front. 15 millimeter at the top and at the bottom. Yeah, they're just worn completely out. Somebody definitely did not maintain this machine very well at all. Alright. Looks like they were building a little sandcastle in here. Alright, same thing like we did on the front. Go ahead and pull that all the way off. Get these boots cleaned back up. Get those pins cleaned up and a little bit of grease on the end. Let's get it reinserted. Get those boots up and around there. And now we can start putting it back together. Alright, need to open up that gap a little bit more. And now she ought to go on. Just like that. Get our two 15 millimeters put back in place. And then we'll put on that little 5 millimeter cap, the Allen. That'll pretty much finish us up. Alright, give the brake pedal a couple of pumps, make sure it's engaging. Oh yeah, I clamp right down on there. Alright, that pretty much finishes this part up as far as just replacing the brake pads themselves. But like I mentioned on the front, the rear brake disc, it's in pretty bad shape. So we're going to be replacing it as well on in another video. But as far as just doing a brake pad installation, this is pretty much it. It's pretty easy to do, and if you keep up with it and keep your pads in good shape, you won't have to go back and replace the brake disc like this one is in desperate need of. Well, listen, if you have any questions or comments, if you would just leave them below and I'll do my best to answer them. And if you need any of the parts, come see us at partzilla.com. And until next time, thanks for watching.